Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome. This is Krishna Dasa again. So, today we are going to continue the glorious journey into Karma Yoga. And today we are going to cover 3.10 and 3.11. So, I'll play the slokas.
सह यज्ञाः प्रजाः सृष्ट्वा पुरोवाच प्रजापतिः अनेन प्रसविष्यध्वमेष वोस्त्विष्टकामधुक् देवान् भावयतानेन ते देवा भावयन्तु वः परस्परं भावयन्तः श्रेयः परमवाप्स्यथ.
So, does anybody here remember what we discussed in 3.7 to 3.9? If I say that, can you just explain in 10 seconds or 15 seconds what you remember? Who remembers? Who would like to try? Okay, Asha ji.
Yeah, so in 3.7, Krishna gives us the blueprint, and from 3.8 and 9, from instructions, from explanation, Krishna moves to instructions.
Wow.
Commands.
Beautiful, beautiful. Any other perspective anyone has? Yes, Sulata ji.
In 3.7, we learned that that's the blueprint of the architecture of action without attachment. And in 3.8, we learned we cannot remain without performing any action. And no one can remain in this without performing action. And no action is not equal to no reaction. And 3.8, we learned how to perform this action selflessly and offer it to whom? Offer it to the divine as a selfless sacrifice like Yajna.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Beautiful, beautiful. I think you brought in a very important aspect. The important aspect you added to what Ashaji said, and you brought in the selfless aspect as well. And whatever we do, we offer. So, any other perspectives, or should we just proceed? Yeah, please revise the slokas 3.7 to 3.9 because they have very powerful foundations of Karma Yoga contained there. So just to kind of make it more memorable and easier to understand, let us go through a story. This story is from the Puranas, of course. So the story of the great king Ambarish. Now, Ambarish is known as a king who was a perfected karma yogi because he was a nishkama karma yogi. In Bhagavad Purana, in many places you will see that they use Ambarish's example to say how we should perform karma. For example, Ambarisha will use his eyes to see the Lord, he will use his hands for service to the Lord, so on and so forth. So let us go through one of his interesting stories. So the beauty of this king was from the outside. He looked pretty normal, pretty ordinary, like any king would look. So you cannot say that there was anything very special about him if you just look at him from the outside. And if you look at how he lived, his activities, there also you cannot see anything very special because as a king, his days were full of meetings and making decisions, addressing the people, listening to complaints, anything that kings used to do in those days. Where was the difference then? The difference was not external. The difference was all internal, inside. Because no matter what he was doing, for us, when we look from the outside, it will look like, oh, he's just being a king. He's in the court and he's doing his regular king things. But inside, he was always in remembrance of Vishnu. And whatever he was doing, he was just making an offering to Vishnu. And Ambarish's viewpoint was that devotion should not be confined just to the morning prayer or just to when we go to a temple. A lot of us do it that way, right? For us, devotion means morning when I do a little bit of diya and agarbatti or whatever. Or devotion is when on some special day, Jabardasti, we go to a temple. But according to Ambarish, devotion had to be a way of life. It was 24/7. And devotion was in everything he said, devotion was in everything he did. So there is one particular story about Ambarish Maharaj. Both he and his queen, they both were very fond of any kind of devotional service to Lord Vishnu. And one of the things they were particularly fond of was Ekadashi. For whatever reason, they always made it a point to fast on Ekadashi. And if you look at the scriptures, at least in those days, we are talking about a period which was a few thousand years ago. In those days, fasting had some strict rules. The rules said when you should fast, but the rules also said when you are supposed to break the fast. Both have to be done accurately, only then the fasting was considered to be effective. Ekadashi is when you start the fast, and technically when the Dwadashi starts, that's when you break the fast. And they have been doing it regularly, and they will also go to the banks of the Yamuna river to break the fast and all of that. So let us focus on one such Ekadashi. It was Dwadashi, it was starting, Dwadashi had started, and according to the rules that we just spoke about, the fast had to be broken within a certain time window. One of the reasons why there were rules and all of that is that the more you are able to comply externally with this kind of rules, the more your inner mind also comes under your control. That was the thinking. That is why the compliance was considered so important. Externally, if you are a rebel, from how can you internally be a Siddha Pragya? That was the thinking. So externally, if you follow certain rules and stick to it, then internally the mind will also get trained and it will not insist on doing its own thing. So that was the kind of thinking. And he was just about to break the fast, and at that time a very unexpected guest arrives. This guest, his name was Durvasa Muni. He is a very, very popular, I won't call him a saint, I would just say he is a very popular rishi. And Durvasa was very elevated, very advanced, very accomplished, but he also had a very particular trait. That trait was his anger. So he was known for his temper more than anything else. But he was very accomplished. He was so accomplished that he could invoke Brahma. He could talk to those gods. He was that powerful. So of course, King Ambarisha recognized him. He welcomes him. He makes him, sit and all the respects and everything. And then he says, Prabhuji, would you like to have some meals? And then Durvasa Muni says, yeah, meals would be good, but I have to first take a bath. And how can you say no to that? Ambarish Maharaj says, okay, you go take a bath, I'll wait for you. And now Durvasa Muni goes to take a bath, and then minutes are passing, more minutes. An hour is gone. The sun is moving. You cannot stop the sun. You cannot stop time. But the sage, he is not returning. Now the king has a painful dilemma. What is the dilemma? Now, the time limit for breaking the fast was fast approaching. So, if he continues to wait, that time will pass and he would have missed, that window. So according to him, that is also dharma. That was his dharma, that he is supposed to fast and break at the given time. But then on the other side, there is one more dharma, that Atithi Devo Bhava. That now Durvasa Muni was a guest and he is supposed to treat him with utmost priority. And then he has to wait for him to come. And he cannot eat before he comes. You see the dilemma. Dilemma is there seem to be two dharmas and they seem to be conflicting with each other. Have you ever faced such a situation in your life where you thought you can either do this way or that way and both seem to be conflicting? Ashaji is nodding her head. Ashaji, any particular examples you are thinking of?
Now, currently, I'm not remembering any example, but many such a situation we have faced. I have faced.
So that is fine. My question is, when you face such a situation, what guides you? What guides you to make the choice? What guides you to pick one of them? Okay, Chitraji wants to say something.
It's always what is better for the well-being of others, and also putting others first before yourself.
Okay, that is a very powerful point. If I can rephrase what Chitraji said, you have a Swadharma and you seem to have two conflicting actions that seem to align with your Swadharma, then which one you pick should be guided by the universal Dharma, the Sanatana Dharma, where in Sanatana Dharma we have these virtues of Satyam and Ahimsa and all of that are there, which is a very powerful and very beautiful answer. Unfortunately, what happens is, in order to be guided by such a universal Dharma, you have to be in that right state of mind also. That is the reason why Krishna is paying so much attention to so much of practice, and repeatedly he keeps saying, Sitoshna Sukha Dukkada, tolerate this, tolerate that, learn to be, equanimous, so that when a situation like this comes, you can be calm, and only when you are calm can you think of, okay, which one of them is aligned with the universal Dharma. But of course, we are talking about King Ambarish. He was already an elevated soul, so he understood exactly what Chitra was saying. So he already knew that there is a higher Dharma that he needs to keep in mind. But that does not mean that he can break either Dharma, because both of them for him were aligned with his devotion to Vishnu only. Because for him, that fast, he was not doing it as a show. And for him, that fast was an offering to Vishnu. So it was very important. And honoring the guest, he was seeing Vishnu in the guest also. And that is why he was in such a predicament. And what we are trying to bring out here is multiple aspects. Aspect number one is, he is also aligning, he is also thinking what is the right thing to do. He is not driven by impulse. He is not impulsively saying, Arey, this Muni is taking a lot of time, I'm going to go ahead and do what. That is not his approach. And second point we want to bring about is, in spite of being a king, Maharaj, of a flourishing empire, he still had the humility. The humility to check with some learned Brahmanas. He's checking with them. He's saying, can you guide me? Like, I'm in a dilemma. If I wait, I break my oath to follow the rules of the fast. And if I don't wait, then I break the rules of engagement with the Atiti. So please guide me. What should I do? So the Brahmanas give him a technical solution. Now what they say is, what you can do is, you can just take a small sip of water. So technically that would be breaking the fast. But at the same time, you have not eaten food, really. So that should not be kind of any offense to the Atiti. Now, so it is a very technical solution, but given by people that he can trust. They are all scholars themselves. So he does what was told. So he goes and takes just a sip of water to align with his dharma of breaking the fast at the given time. And see, he is not trying to just find a loophole. He is just trying to make sure that he aligns with dharma, like Chitraji said, like aligning with dharma at the same time, not causing hurt to anybody. That was his intent. So he was acting out of a very pure intent. But when the sage returns, it is not any ordinary sage. It is the great Durvasa Muni, who had a divine vision. And so when he comes, he just knows that this king has taken a sip of water. But because he still suffered from the vikara of Krodha, he didn't pause to consult with the king. He didn't pause to ask him why he did what he did. He just becomes very angry. And it is described very dramatically. If you look at the story in the Puranas, they will say that his face got red and his body was trembling. But we will cut all that short and just say that he got really angry. And the king, how is the king reacting? Humble, folded hands. Not as, hey, I'm also a king. You have to behave with me. Nothing like that. There is no ego, there is no pride. Like a king, he's folding his hands, putting his head down. I'm sorry. I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. But Krodha, that is why Krishna will go and say that Kama, Krodha, they are the top two. You add Lobha and you're on the highway to hell. So, Durvasa here is not in a state of samatvam. In spite of all his elevated status, he is not in samatvam at all. So he does something very terrifying. What he does is he picks a lock of hair and using his occult powers, he transforms that into a kritya. A kritya is a very ferocious demon. These are the kind of demons that are like you cannot vanquish them. Like they are because they are not made of flesh and bones. They are made of occult powers. So he creates the kritya and he unleashes it on to Ambarish, saying, "Go destroy this king." Now watch the king. If anything like this happened to any of us, we would be in a nervous breakdown. Why a kritya? Even if a drunk person behaves violently in front of us, sometimes we just lose it. Correct? But that's not what happens to Maharaj Ambarish. Ambarish does not even try to run. Ambarish does not argue. Ambarish does not say any harsh words. Nothing. Perfect sthita pragya. Completely undisturbed. But is that what a sthita pragya is? Is a sthita pragya means just not being disturbed? Does anybody have any ideas on what will make you a complete sthita pragya? Sthita pragya does not just mean like you are like a stone, like just nothing happens. Sthita pragya is 2 steps, 2 things, at least 2 things. One thing is you are completely calm, you are completely undisturbed. The second thing is, what do you do in that state of calmness? You are just focusing on the Lord. That is what Krishna will also say, that Atma Rama, where they are self-realized and they are content. So there it doesn't just mean your own self, it means you are seeing the Lord in yourself. So you are calm, you are composed, and you are immersed in Ananya Chintan. That is a complete Sthita Pragya. And that is what Ambarish was. So he was not afraid, he was not running away, he was not fighting back. He was calm. At the same time, he was just focusing on Krishna. He was just focusing on Lord, the Vishnu. And he was saying, Lord, you know my intentions. You know what I did was with pure intent. Now it is entirely up to you. If you think I'm supposed to be destroyed by this Kritya, so be it. No, what importance is this body anyways? That is his mindset. And is that something that we can identify with? Are we able to be like this? Like when some calamity happens or when something very dangerous or very upsetting happens, most of us, we become unsettled. Do you know why? Why do you think we get unsettled or we get kind of disturbed and out of balance and sometimes we make mistakes? Okay, Chalmali ji, you have something to say?
Because of the fear, people like they think that we can't, and uncertainty, they
Yes.
feel that
So why the fear though? That's the question.
That they don't trust, because
Trust what?
trust that everything, like whatever is happening, it's happening because of some reasons, but you have to stay calm and you have to stay focused, again attached to. So
Okay. You're on the right track, definitely. Yes, Sharma ji.
So we think that it helps, it is attacking our self-preservation or ego, which is being affected. So we are always bound to ourselves, our body and ego. And if it is
Excellent.
getting hurt, then we become very anxious.
Excellent. It's all complementary answers. Like what you said, what Shalmili Ji says, they are all parts of the answer. There is just still one missing part that I'm trying to get at. Maybe because some of you who have already done Bhagavad Gita once, I think for you, this will come. I already gave the hint also. This also we study in the Bhakti Sutra. Okay, Somaji, you had something to add?
Is it because we become anxious and we try to control what we actually cannot?
You're right. You are talking about the symptom. Perfectly right. And I'm asking about the cause. Why do we become anxious is the question. And Manojji gave part of the answer. Shalmili gave part of the answer. There is still one missing piece. Okay, Chitraji really wants to say something. And then Sharmaji, yeah, we have one more hand there.
Is it because we think we control the outcomes of our action and that is what disrupts our thinking?
Yes, you are right. But that is still a symptom. The symptom is we somehow land up in this situation of illusion that we control the outcome. The question is, why do we land up in that situation? Smita Srinivas, we can't see you. Chitraji wanted to really say something. Yes, Chitraji.
It's lack of faith. When our faith is shaken.
Okay, you are very close. Now I'm going to ask, why is our faith shaken? Who can tell me? Okay, Sulataji.
When we forget the value of Bhagwan, like our trust gets shaken.
Got it. You are all there. You are all getting to that one point. Yes, Vikasji.
Because we fail to realize that we are a part of the higher self only, so there is nothing to be afraid of.
Got it. Why do we fail to remember that? See, this is how you reach to the... Okay, I still see a hand here. I just don't know whose hand. Unfortunately, I'm not able to see any chat because the display goes to a TV in front of me and I cannot read chats there. So, Ashaji?
Agyan, ignorance.
Okay, Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya. Yes. So I'm asking why? What is the... Yes, Deepaji? I mean, you all already gave the answers. So I'm just trying to put it into a form which is... Yes, Deepaji?
We are overwhelmed and we're not able to think properly, as a result of which
Correct.
we're not focusing on the Lord.
See, that is what I'm trying to get at. The first part of your answer was the symptom, but the second part of your answer is talking about the cause. The cause is we are not in Ananya Chintan. So we are trying to force calmness. But as I said, we are not complete Sthita Pragya because we are not in Ananya Chintan. Our mind is not always tied to the Lord. When that happens, then there is no anxiety, then there is no fear. You know this story? Okay, now because we are discussing this, I will quickly talk about this very interesting story in Mahabharata. What happened is, Duryodhana is having this argument again with Bhishma Pitama. Bhishma Pitama is very annoyed, but what to do? Like he has his vachan to take care of. And so Duryodhana, he is confronting Bhishma Pitama. He is telling Bhishma Pitama that, are you my general or are you their general? You say you are my general and then you have already made up your mind that you are not going to kill any of those Pandavas. So you are not even doing your duty. So like that he instigates him. And Bhishma Pitama gets kind of emotional. He gets a bit upset. So he takes 5 arrows and he says, Pratigya, I am taking a pratigya that tomorrow by end of day, I'll finish these Pandavas. And that's it. Bhishma Pratigya, you know what it is, right? They say that Bhishma Pratigya means nobody, nothing can shake it. And so there are Guptachars, spies on both sides of the army. So the spies of Pandavas, they run to Pandava camp and they are telling the Pandavas, Krishna is also sitting there and the 5 Pandavas are sitting and they say, Anartha, Anartha, what happened? Anartha has happened because now Bhishma Pitama has taken a pratigya that by tomorrow end of day, all of these Pandavas will be gone. They are all listening. And after some time, they all retire and the Pandavas go hit the bed and Arjuna goes to sleep, and so after some time Krishna comes, he wakes up Arjuna and says, how come you are sleeping? Did you not hear what they said? That Bhishma has taken a pratigya that he is going to finish you off. How can you just sleep? Arjuna says, why should I be worried? You are there, na? So it is another perspective that we are trying to bring out here is, if you are an Ananya Chintan, if you have complete faith in the Lord, then there should be no fear. So Narada Muni in the Bhakti Sutra says it very beautifully. He says, Anashrayanas tyago ananyatha. That means, as long as you think that your money is your security, as long as you think that your family is your security, as long as you think that your social status is your security, as long as you think that anything else is a source of your security, you cannot escape from fear, because none of that is Sat. Your money can disappear tomorrow. One stock market crash and everything is gone. Right? Your social status can disappear tomorrow. All it takes is one gossip, one something going wrong. Your health can disappear tomorrow. Your family can just disappear tomorrow. So that understanding we should have while we are practicing Samatvam. So it is not just stay calm, but stay calm and focus on the Lord, and always be in the mindset that He is the only support. He is the only source of security. So Ambarish, he was a Maharaj. He had an entire army at his command. And still his mindset was, Vishnu, it is up to you. There is a demon coming. Ambarish is not trying to call his generals and say, shoot this demon down. He's like, Vishnu, it is up to you now. That is the beautiful part. So, if I have to summarize what I've said so far, all we are trying to bring out is maintain Samatvam in the right sense and always be in that Ananya Chintan and have this mindset that my real security is only the Lord. There is nothing else which is true security. If you are in that mindset, it is much easier to then take care of all the symptoms you spoke about. Then this whole body consciousness will automatically go away. Then anxiety will not have any room, so on and so forth. So now it's a beautiful part of the story. The beautiful part of the story is, yes, Soumyaji, you had something?
So, Guruji, I'm just looking for more direction. So, as per this one story, like I don't know where the story ends with Amrish and Rishi Durvasa. So, if in Ananya Chintan, Amrish Raja is unmoved and is in Ananya Chintan, isn't it also an indicator that he is not doing any action?
Yeah, but what is his rightful action is the question. So he already did the rightful action. The rightful action was he made sure that he is not technically insulting his Atithi. He is also not breaking the rules of a fast. So he consulted with the Brahmanas. He got guidance and he acted as per guidance. So he already did whatever he had to do. He put in the right efforts. He did his swakarma or niyatam karma. And then this happens, it's not in his control. It's the whole point. He cannot control whether Durvasa Muni gets angry or does not get angry. That's not in his control. Okay. So let us now see how beautifully the story turns now. So now when the Kritya is about to lay its hands on Ambarish Maharaj, Vishnu's Sudarshan Chakra appears. And the Sudarshan Chakra takes care of that Kritya, that demon, in like a fraction of a second. Like that demon gets burned down. But it doesn't stop there. And now the Sudarshan Chakra turns against Durvasa Muni. So just visualize the great elevated sage Durvasa. Suddenly he's in fear. The karma has worked its wonders. No tables have turned. He thought Ambarish is going to tremble in fear and get destroyed, but suddenly now he sees the Sudarshana Chakra and chasing him. And now Durvasa Muni is in fear. You see now what is again the essence of the story. Why is Durvasa Muni in fear? Because he was not in Samatvam, he was not a Sthita Pragya. You see the importance. Doesn't matter how many siddhis you get out of your meditation and out of your practices. At the end of the day, if you are not being a Sthita Pragya, then you are not yet complete. So that's what is happening, and the story goes on. So Durvasa Muni starts running, but the Sudarsana Chakra will not stop chasing. He runs to the end of the world, but Sudarsana Chakra is still chasing him. So he runs, he goes to Brahma, because he is such an elevated person. He has access to Brahmalok. And Brahma says, I'm sorry, dear. Sudarsana Chakra is way beyond my pay grade. I cannot help you against that thing. No. Then it says that he runs, he even goes to Shiva. And Shiva says, I wish I could help you, but Sudarsana Chakra is something that is beyond me. You will have to go only to Vishnu. No, it won't listen to anybody else. So like that, it says that he finally reaches Lord Narayana, Vishnu. And he says, can you take care of the Sudarsana Chakra? It is chasing me. And what does Lord tell him? The Lord is not dismissing him, but the Lord is making something very clear. He says, listen, Durvasa Muni, this is something you brought on yourself. The only way out of this, you cannot beat my Sudarsana Chakra now based on your strength. You cannot beat it based on any kind of power that you have accumulated. You cannot beat it based on just your status of being a very great, accomplished Rishi. None of that is going to help you here. Durvasa says, then what is going to help me? He says, first of all, the first step, you need to develop humility. He says, okay, then what? Then you have to go back. You have to go back to my devotee who you tried to destroy. He said, the only escape for you is you seeking mercy from my devotee who you tried to destroy, and that devotee has to forgive you. That's the only way you can escape from the Sudarshana Chakra. So Durvasa now goes back, runs back. He comes to Ambarish Maharaj. Now this is probably the most beautiful part of the story, where it is said in the Puranas, they say that all this running in fear, it went on for 1 year. Because even if you travel at the speed of light, right, these planets are really far away. So he had to go to Brahmalok, he had to go to Vaikuntha and all of that. So by the time he came back, it was like a year. But in this entire year, Ambarish Maharaj was standing right there. He was waiting for the sage to come back. That is the story. And he is not even eaten. Ambarish Maharaj took a sip of water just to technically take care of his work. But now that all of this happened, now he is not eaten his food. He is still waiting for his Atithi. That is Ambarish Maharaj. And he has been in silent prayer. He has been in meditation. He has been waiting for the saint, so on and so forth. And when Durvasa finally appears, he is a different person. Now Durvasa Muni is a broken person, humbled person. His arrogance is gone. Look at the situation. How tables have turned. Now the king has all the power. Now the king could have turned this situation into a moment of victory. Just imagine if he was just a political king like most kings, this would have been the biggest victory. He could have said that I defeated the Durvasa Muni. He could have got glory, fame. No, that's not what he does. Instead, he prays for the welfare of Durvasa Muni. And he is praying to Lord Vishnu and he's praying to the Sudarshana Chakra and saying, please calm down, please go back. I cannot have any satisfaction from the suffering of this sage. Even if this looks like a victory, that victory is of no use to me. And he says, and even if this is a defeat, I don't care. Because regardless of whether it's a victory or a defeat, oh Lord, I'm anyways offering it all to you. So he says, please take back the Sudarshana Chakra and please prevent any further harm to this great saint. So that is what is the beautiful story. So this story, if you can reflect on, if you introspect on, you will see many great powerful points that come out of that story. And the key thing to keep in mind is the king did not try to escape action. The king only escaped bondage. And that is the message of Krishna to all of us. The message from Krishna is never try to escape action, but you should try to escape from bondage. And how to do it is what we are studying in Karma Yoga. And now you see what was the mistake in what Arjuna was doing? Arjuna was trying to escape action. He was saying, I will lay down my arms and I will just, let people kill me and all of that. And unless you have this knowledge that you now have, you would mistakenly think that what Arjuna is doing is somehow very noble. It's not noble. Now you get the point. Chalmali ji, you had a question?
Guruji, Ambarish Rishi was a higher soul, so that's why anybody, the other front person, Durvasa Rishi was angry, so he and he was not giving him, he was not, he was insulting him. But in the real situation, in the regular life, if anybody is insulting you, so in that situation, we should only do the Ananya Chintan, or what we should do? Like, I'm confused. Like, I'm not.
What is the confusion really?
Ananya Chintan should be there for sure. But Guruji, if that person is insulting you, then next time when you are, so you should talk. I know you should not talk, but because of the work or because of relationship, we need to talk. So how we can do that then?
See, the point is always focus on what is your niyatam karma. Are you doing what you are supposed to do, rightful action? And then it doesn't matter. Somebody praises you, don't jump around. Somebody insults you, don't sulk. You cannot control what other people do is the whole message. The question is not what do I do if somebody insults me. The question is how do I make sure that I'm always doing what is my niyatam karma? I'm giving you a very simple answer. We can later on dive deep and I can also give you a very Vedantic answer if you need. Maybe I will get you started and I will ask you, what is the meaning of somebody insulted me? What is that me? So if you dive deeper, that is another perspective as well. But here we will keep it simple and just say that you focus on what is your rightful action and then what others say, that is the definition of a Sthita Pragya. Don't expect praise and don't be broken by insults. So with that, now we can dive into 3.10 and 3.11. And this is where Krishna will start with the perspective on what is Yajna. The word Yajna is kind of, I would say, is difficult to translate into English, the limitation of the language. Because Yajna can mean offering, it can mean sacred participation, it can mean a harmonious way of living in which every act becomes an offering. See, I have to use so many words because that is the power of the word Yajna. We will see now how Krishna explains this. So Krishna, he tells us that Prajapati is another term used for Brahma. And Prajapati had declared that the spirit of Yajna would be like the wish-fulfilling Kamadhenu for humanity. The Yajna would be the very means by which life would flourish. You all know what is Kamadhenu. If you don't know, we can talk about that story in another session. Beautiful story, but in short, Kamadhenu is a wish-fulfilling cow. You can ask anything and it will grant you a wish. So here, what the message here is, Yajna is like that Kamadhenu for humanity. So through Yajna, you can get all our wishes fulfilled. And then Krishna is revealing the great laws, how the universe works, how existence works. So one of the things he says is, when you nourish the Devas are forces that are sustaining many parts of the cosmos. Like there is a Deva for fire, there is a Deva for space, there is a Deva for planets, a Deva for rain. And he says, when you nourish the Devas in turn nourish you. And to this mutual kind of nourishment, he says that is the mechanism how the entire universe is sustained. So what is at stake here? Because see, Arjuna is now caught in his own personal dilemma. Arjuna is looking for a way out, a justification to withdraw from the messiness of life. But do you see what he is violating? Apart from the whole concept of Swakarma and Niyatam Karma and all of that, now Krishna brings in this other perspective where Krishna talks about the essence of Yajna. He says Yajna is the source, the force and the source of all of creation. And he says one of the aspects of Yajna is not just you offer something. It is you offer something, somebody offers you something. And it is a mutual relationship. See, like, even if I have to give a very simple, very common example, we take in oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide. The trees and plants take in the carbon dioxide, they give out oxygen. That is Yajna. There is an Yajna going on right there. It is nourishment, mutual nourishment. See, what happens if one fine day, the plants and trees decide that we don't want to give out oxygen? Okay, they are plants and trees, so they will not do that. It's always the humans who have this quirkiness. What happens if one day we say that, no more breathing? You will also perish, and you will also be impacting the trees and plants which depend on this cycle, you see? So when somebody refuses to do what they are supposed to do, it is another way of saying that they are being selfish, because they are not understanding that they are breaking this flow. They are breaking this mutual nourishment, where when they do what they are supposed to do, they nourish something or somebody, and then that somebody will be doing what they are supposed to do, and somewhere it will all come back. The cycle has to go on. That is how the universe works. So withdrawal, intent to withdraw from life, that is why Krishna says, basically shows that you don't understand how life works. Isn't it beautiful? What we need to do, Krishna will say that participating in life should never be optional. There is never a choice. The question doesn't even make sense whether I should participate in life or whether I should not participate in life. The only question is whether you want to participate consciously, mindfully, positively, or do you want to participate unconsciously, forcefully, and grudgingly. That is the only choice. And as you can understand, like we gave a very simple example of we breathe out carbon dioxide and the trees and plants. Can anyone tell who designed it? Can anyone tell when that design came into force? Impossible. It has been happening for eternity. So this is not something that has come into existence recently. It is not something that some human has created. It is divine, but this is the mechanism, how the universe works. So in the Isha Upanishad also, there is a beautiful saying that pretty much says that you have to acknowledge that everything is pervaded by the Lord, and everything is a mutual arrangement. So don't try. That is why lobha is a vikhara. Because in lobha, what happens? We are not thinking about anything mutual. In lobha, it is all about mine, hoarding. There you are trying to break the flow. Because the universe is built on this concept of a flow. So it's very practical, the advice. The advice is enjoy life. Enjoy it fully. But enjoy it through the spirit of offering. Enjoy it not as everything is mine, but enjoy it as I'm just playing a role. No, I'm playing a part in this divine arrangement. It is just like a beautiful orchestra. Have you seen an orchestra? I think an orchestra is, in my opinion, the best reflection of what life is. Every time I see an orchestra, I feel touched. Because I can see that, how beautifully everybody plays their part. And it is not about just me, just mine. Everybody does what they are supposed to do. And when everybody does what they are supposed to do together, a beautiful, magical music is the outcome. Imagine if even one of the instruments went out of tune. If one of the instruments did just what it wanted to do, or if one of the instruments refused to do what if it has to do, it impacts the whole music in some way. That is how we have to look at ourselves. We are all a part of this grand orchestra, and we do have a role. And what we do is an offering for the orchestra, and the entire orchestra is an offering for the Lord. And when we have that mindset, then everything becomes harmonious. Everything becomes very beautiful. So that is where in 3.11, Krishna will describe this mutual nourishment, and he uses the word bhavayata. Beautiful use of word. Bhavayata is the sense of cherishing, sustaining, causing to flourish. It's full of warmth. He is not threatening us. He is giving us all the positive, encouraging aspects. So that is why when we offer the fruit of our actions, we are playing the right role the right way in the functioning of this whole universe. Like when the rain falls, the earth will yield food, the seasons turn, and then that helps us have a good food, good health, and so on and so forth. The cycle continues, where every aspect is a willing participation in the cycle. If any one part doesn't happen, how everything breaks down. The farmer has to sow a seed. The soil has to be ready. The microorganisms have to do their part. The rain has to fall at the right time. Sunlight has to be there when it has to be there. You see, the temperature has to be right. And then the seed then sprouts, then it becomes a tree, and then the cycle continues. See, that is what is the message, and this is all Krishna is saying. Look at it as a yajna, where everything in this equation, in this whole cosmos, think of it as an offering because it plays a part in something bigger. There is nothing just independently isolated. There is nothing you do technically which can be just yours. Because you yourself are not independent. You cannot survive if the rest of the cosmos around you did not do what they are supposed to do, isn't it? Imagine if suddenly wherever you are standing, imagine suddenly the gravity becomes 10 times more. All your bones will go crushing, right? We have to realize this. We have to realize that we may think we are special, we may think we are unique, but we are just a part of an ecosystem where we are thriving only because everything around us is doing what they are supposed to do. It's a very, very beautiful, powerful statement that gives a very unique perspective to Karma Yoga. That is why whatever you are doing, do it with a mindset that this is just a yajna. Because what I am doing is also playing a role in this ecosystem. It is helping something, it is helping somebody. And that is how it has to be, because it will all come around and somebody else is doing something that is helping me. Like you are now sitting here, comfortably, you are sitting in a couch, you are sitting in a sofa, you are wearing beautiful clothes. None of that is your creation. And somebody has created that house, somebody has created that couch, somebody has created that dress. You see, we have to be in that realization always. If they all didn't do what they were supposed to do, today you would not be here. Correct? So it is not that only they should do what they're supposed to do, but I'm unique, so I don't have to. That is a fallacy. That is the delusion, is what Krishna is trying to point out again and again and again. So that is where this Taittiriya Upanishad has the spirit of mutuality comes in one of this famous invocation in the Taittiriya Upanishad, where it says, you might have heard this.
Sahana bhavatu sahanau bhunattu sahaviryam karvavahe tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahe. Shanti Shanti Shanti.
May He protect us both. May He nourish us both. May we work together with great energy. May we not hate each other, and so on and so forth. Now, if you see that sloka, it is called the Shanti Mantra. The prayer does not say, protect me, nourish me. It says both. The teacher and the student both get nourished. The human and the divine both get nourished. The individual and the whole both get nourished. That is the true essence of Yajna. I hope it's making sense. So, this all seems natural, it all seems beautiful, then why does it feel difficult? Why are we not able to live that way? That is the big question. Why does Arjuna not just naturally get it? Is the question. The answer lies in the nature of the human mind. Because we are all conditioned. Now I will explain this. I've explained now Yajna. Hopefully everybody understood what Krishna is trying to say. And Yajna is not just Yajna is not just I have to sit half naked and in front of a big fire and throw something into the fire. No, that is just one aspect of ritualistic Yajna. But Yajna is something more beautiful, something more integral to all of us, something that happens every day. That is Krishna's message. And now that we understood, then the question is, if that is so natural, if that is so integral, why do people have a resistance? Like, for example, why does Arjuna have a resistance? Why does he say, I don't want to do what I'm supposed to do, I want to run away? All of us have the same thing. I mean, it is alter ego is what is called. We are using Arjuna as a poor, Arjuna didn't want to do this, Arjuna didn't want to do that, but it applies to all of us. We are all Arjunas, where we have all had this resistance, we still do. So question is why? Let me ask you a question, and you can all give an answer in maybe 2 or 3 words. Sometimes if you have to give, there is a resistance. What do you think is a resistance? Usually, what is that thought that comes when you have to give anything? Okay, I have here. Yes, Lakshmi ji?
Yeah. What I'm going to, if I do this one, whether he's the right person, I was thinking, to help him. Am I doing to the right person?
No, I'm just asking about giving. You have to give something. So what is
the giving to something also, I'm telling you. To giving something is either a right person.
Okay. That is your fear. That's fine. Okay. Let's go to now Deepaji. What is that fear or resistance?
Or rather, sometimes you're like, what am I going to get out of it? Or you're conscious.
Okay, what am I going to get? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me make it a little simpler. Let us say you have a box of candies. Okay, and somebody tells you have to give a few. So what is the initial resistance which is naturally comes to most of us? Yes, Soumyaji, you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we generally overthink and the ego comes in between. Usually,
Okay.
like it's only about the I, and I that comes in between.
Got it.
Yeah.
But here I'm asking something much simpler, So the simpler answer is, whenever you think you have to give, there is a resistance that says, then I will have less. Somebody says, can you give $1,000? The first resistance is, then I will have less. I will not have enough. Isn't it? Just like that, when somebody says serve, that is what Lakshmiji was trying to say. If I serve, then somehow I will become lesser. Or let us say, somebody says, go out of your way and do something for somebody. What is the first resistance? This probably many people will have the same answer. So let us say you are supposed to go out of your way and do something for somebody. Out of your way means what? You didn't really have to do it, but you are still going out of the way and doing more than what you need to do. Then what is the resistance that usually comes? I hope you all try to do that at some point, huh? Going out of your way. Okay. So you don't feel any resistance if you have to do something. Kahan is smiling. He's like, yes, Kahan, what are you thinking?
I think the same thing, that what am I going to get out of this?
Yes. Yes. The other very common, yes, Sharma ji?
I think so. I have a resistance. I just have a dilemma whether I should be, let's say, I have to make a donation. And I would be thinking that, do I make it, let's say, to the temple or maybe send it to a children's fund? I am more prone to sending it to a children's fund. And then I'm thinking, am I depriving the temple of the money that I was supposed to give to them? But I feel serving the humanity is much more in tune with who I am.
Okay.
That is my dilemma. I don't have a resistance. I have a dilemma. And I don't know how to get over that. I really don't know.
That's a very good point you make. And here Krishna's advice would be Viveka. Viveka is discernment. That is where you need to be very sure on where the funds are being utilized. And because sometimes, I'm just giving you some counter arguments. Sometimes we think we are giving to a noble cause, like just because somebody says, oh, we help poor children, we just throw money. But how many of us have the resources to find out what exactly are they doing with their money? So that is beyond us. So what we need to do is just have some high-level discernment, which you already have, on what kind of initiatives I want to fund, and then leave the rest to the Lord. Do whatever you can and then leave the rest to the Lord. But the bigger question is, whenever somebody says, but here you are not going out of the way, Sharma ji. Here, when you say I'm making a donation usually means it is surplus funds that you have. Something that is not going to hurt you. That is what is a donation usually. But when we say going out of the way, that means I'm myself hungry, but I'm still trying to feed somebody. So, one of the most common resistance that comes in people's minds is, will I be taken advantage of? And this happens to almost everybody. They always worry that if I do too much, will I be taken advantage of? But all of these things on, I may have less if I give, or the other things that we just discussed, they all point to what Soumyaji was talking about. That resistance, that voice that talks about depletion, that talks about having less, that talks about becoming lesser, that talks about being taken advantage of. If you introspect, that resistance, that voice is the voice of ahankara. That is the voice of ego. And we are not here saying whether it is right or wrong. We are saying that is the mechanism. That is the structure of the human mind. That's all we are trying to talk about here. And then what we need to know is the mind now trained or is the mind untrained? If the mind is untrained, then it will just sway and it will just follow whatever that ahankara tells it. But if the mind is trained, That is where all these concepts of Viveka, Jnana, Viveka, they all come together, and then we are able to now connect the dots and align with Swadharma and the universal Dharma, and then figure out what is the right thing to do. And once you have figured it out, then do it, then don't worry. Then it doesn't matter if that person takes you for granted, it doesn't matter if, because it is Lord alone who is my security. See, all of that will fall in place. I hope it's all making sense. So Krishna, very gently and very firmly, is trying to address this voice in these shlokas. Now he's telling Arjuna that, Arjuna, you have to recognize that you are acting out of that self-preserving instinct. However, when that becomes the ruling principle of your life, it will actually cut you off from the very source of your own nourishment. If I had said this statement at the beginning, it would have sounded like mumbo jumbo. But because now we have just understood the whole mechanism of how the universe works, how everybody is playing a part, it is mutual nourishment and so on and so forth, then this statement makes complete sense, where Krishna is telling Arjuna that you will be cutting yourself off from the very nourishment that you yourself need. Just like a branch of a tree, there is very little water. And so the branch of the tree says, I don't want to share this water with the rest of the tree because I need water. What happens? What do you think happens to the branch if the tree becomes dry? Do you think the branch can survive alone? That is the most common or simplest example we can give on this, why this mindset of I want to withhold, or I want to hoard, all for me. Why that actually hurts us in the long run. Because we are behaving like that branch which is trying to keep all the water for itself. It's actually foolish. Because the entire tree has to survive as an ecosystem, where the leaves, the branches, the roots, they're all sharing. They're all sharing the water, resources, the energy, right? So that is the message here. We feel it all the time, but we need to use our discernment to examine that feeling and deal with it in a very categorical way. Somebody says give, and the first reaction, emotional reaction, is resistance. Somebody says serve, the first reaction is resistance. Isn't it? That resistance is a part of what is called as vasana. This is what is vasana. Vasana basically is the habitual responses, the instinctive responses that comes from us, which comes without our permission. That is pretty much the principle of a vasana. Now this is the vasana that Krishna is addressing. How he is addressing it? Not by just admonishing, not by just threatening, not by just judging, but he is addressing it by explaining why it makes no sense and why everything is supposed to be a yajna by design. Doing an yajna is not something very great that we are doing. Doing yajna is a very natural thing that we are supposed to do. All the good things that happens, please try to absorb this. All the good things that ever happened to you has happened through the world, not away from the world. If that sinks in, then we will be able to totally relate with what Krishna is saying. Running away is never an option, because you are an integral part of this whole ecosystem. If you refuse to do good to something or somebody, how can good be done to you? If you refuse to share water with the rest of the tree, how can the tree share its resources with you? It's natural, is the whole argument here. So this is the Vedantic framework, and in Vedanta this is what is called as, so when Krishna is talking about yajna, which is very integral to the core of creation, this is what Vedanta will also call as ritha. Ritha is, or ritha, some people pronounce it as ritha also. That is the cosmic order. That is the divine intelligence that is governing the entire cosmos, like seasons or we all know that all the rivers move towards the ocean. Have you seen any exception there? Have you seen any river which tries to go away from the ocean? You have to question why. That is Ritha. That is all part of that whole cosmic design, cosmic order. Now, because if a river does manage to go away from the ocean, it will cease being a river very soon. Imagine a river says, I'm not going to contribute to the ocean, then what happens? It's no longer a river. See? It is just a isolated piece of water which is going to become contaminated, which is going to become dirty, which is going to become polluted, and which is going to dry out. If you don't contribute to the ocean, how can the ocean contribute rain back to you? See how the cycle works. So we are all a part of this intelligence. It is not that the intelligence is happening away from us, the intelligence is happening through us also. So when we are aware of it and when we live with alignment with it, then you will find life becoming easy. When you are not aligned, then your life will always feel fearful, your life will always feel tiring. Now, if somebody says, I'm tired of life, that just means they just don't know how to align with this Ritha. They just don't know how to align with this flow. No, it is like a poor guy trying to row a boat, but he is rowing against the current. So he is going to be very tired and he's not going to go far. Whereas somebody who understands how to align with the current does the job. That is the beautiful message here. So if we can understand this, if we can internalize this, if we can remember this all the time, and if we can now start performing our actions, not just rightful actions, not just swadharma, not just niyatam karma, but nishkama karma. This is the true essence of nishkama karma. Where it is not just fashionably, I am not expecting anything. It is with a deep understanding that there is no point in expecting, because I am giving and somebody else is giving me as well, whether I realize it or not, because it is all part of this Ritha, it's all part of this cosmic design. That is Yajna. And once we do that, transformation has to happen. Then you will feel that life is working in your favor. When does life work in your favor? When you start working in life's favor. It is not a tit for tat. It is just design. You see, it is just a natural design. So I hope all this is making sense. If anybody had any queries or questions, please let me know. I know we took a little longer today. You see, we just spoke two slokas today. And it still took so long, but it's important. Vikasji has raised his hand. Yes, Vikasji.
Hare Krishna Guruji. One very basic kind of a question, So while this whole system is kind of in a very fine balance, correct? It's fine-tuned, it is designed in such a way that it works. There is always give, there is always take, and that symbiotic relationship is what is at the core of it. But my question was, why is this whole thing required? So, why is that whole symbiotic relationship and all of this thing required in the first place? Because that seems to be the one which is creating all these other things, correct? If you take an extreme, you have politicians who are holding up for, I think, tens of generations, correct? On the other hand, you have people so-called educated people who knowingly also keep quiet, and there are so many things which are happening around, which either you put up your foot up and then you get pushed down and then you are beaten up, so you keep quiet about it, or you accept it, whichever way, kind of this whole thing seems to be it's like you're playing against the house in some fashion, so the whole context, the question was, why is this all required in the first place?
Yeah, so Vikasji, I think we have had a similar discussion in the past. The answer, if I have to do justice, it has to be a very technical answer. So because, for example, you are asking, why does cosmos exist? Basically, that's what you are asking. Because if cosmos exists, then this is how it exists. This is the definition of a cosmos where everything is yajna and it is mutual nourishment, And so if you are asking why the cosmos itself exists, that's a much bigger question. And all I can say right now is the question is flawed, because, for example, if I have to, maybe I'll take just 2 minutes, because it's a very, we can go very deep on this one. It's a very involved topic. But for example, somebody is asking, what was there before time was created? Do you see a flaw in that question? See, the flaw is the whole concept of before and after falls within the framework of time. When there was no time, there was no before, there was no after. So asking what was there before time doesn't make any sense, because you are asking for the cause of a cause. Just like that, we can explain how this whole Maya works. This is all part of the framework of Maya, right? But if you ask me why Maya, then the question is flawed. Because this whole question of what, why, when, it is all within the framework of Maya. So why Maya is a flawed question. So of course, I will try to do justice to it in a simpler way, because this gets very philosophical very quickly. And I don't want to bore everybody. So because you bear with me, I will try to find a simpler answer for you. But right now, the question is not, why does the cosmos exist? Or because they're all beyond our control. The question is only, it exists. We cannot control it, and you acknowledge it, I acknowledge it. So in this context, when cosmos exists, I am part of a cosmos and I cannot control how the cosmos works, what is the best option for me? Just align with the cosmos. It is like I am already in the ocean. I can question why the ocean exists. Or now I can figure out that I'm already in the ocean. Can I just understand how the ocean currents work and align with that, so that my life becomes easy? That is what we are talking about here. Okay, then I think hopefully it was a very insightful session, because these are all like the real gems of Karma Yoga. This is the real Karma Yoga, the way Krishna explains it, because that is totally life transforming. That totally helps us, evolve and transform and be a part of this universe consciously, mindfully. It's so beautiful if you can live with that awareness that right now I am actually a part of this whole cosmos. Right now I am an integral part. I am required, I am necessary, I have a role to play. That gives so much meaning to life. That's all I want to say. With that, I can stop talking. Hare Krishna. And we will see you all in the next session, and we will go deeper into Karma Yoga then.